My parents secretly watched my golden child brother load my 8-year-old son's brand new birthday present into his truck and told me to stop making a scene when I caught him. They thought I would just swallow the disrespect like I always did, until I found their hidden group chat, cut off the secret financial lifeline they were stealing from me, and handed my brother a police report for grand theft. Original post. I never thought a child's toy would be the catalyst that completely detonated my entire family structure, but looking back at the wreckage, it makes a depressing amount of sense. My name is Ethan. I'm 34 years old, a single dad to an amazing little boy named Leo, and until a few weeks ago, I genuinely believed that if I just kept my head down, stayed reasonable, and always played the role of the bigger person, my family would eventually treat me with basic respect. I was spectacularly wrong. The toy in question was just the breaking point where the disrespect stopped being subtle enough to ignore and became a flashing neon sign of emotional abuse. My son, Leo, turned 8 this year. He is the kind of kid who counts down to his birthday like it is a major celestial event, not just a Tuesday on the calendar. Every single morning for 2 straight months, he would wake up, run into the kitchen while I was making my coffee, and announce the exact number of days left. Only 42 more days, Dad. Then, only 41. It was like he was tracking a NASA rocket launch. Leo doesn't ask for a lot. He's incredibly careful with his belongings, he says please and thank you without ever being prompted, and he still gets genuinely thrilled over small things that most kids his age completely take for granted, like an extra scoop of ice cream or a trip to the local park. About 4 months before his birthday, we were walking past a sporting goods store in our neighborhood when he saw it, a miniature, battery-powered electric dirt bike. It was a beautiful, custom-painted metallic blue Razor MX 350 with heavy-duty knobby tires and matte black handlebars. He stopped so suddenly on the sidewalk that I nearly tripped right over him. He just stood there, staring through the glass, his little hands shoved deep into his jacket pockets, rocking back and forth on his heels. Dad, he whispered, his breath fogging up the glass. That is the coolest thing I have ever seen in my entire life. He didn't beg for it. He didn't throw a tantrum, or demand that I buy it. He just admired it with his quiet, pure reverence. That reaction alone made my decision for me. I am a warehouse manager, and money is usually tight, but I immediately went to my boss and picked up every single weekend overtime shift I could physically handle for the next 3 months. I saved every extra penny, bought the dirt bike online for $600 so Leo wouldn't see me carrying it out of the store, and hid it in my garage beneath a heavy canvas tarp behind a stack of dusty holiday decorations. Every time I went out to the garage to do laundry, I would peel back the corner of that canvas tarp, look at the gleaming blue metal, and just picture the look on his face. As a single dad, I don't get very many moments where I feel like I am absolutely nailing this whole parenting thing, but buying that dirt bike felt like a massive victory. I couldn't wait. Unfortunately, family birthdays in my world are rarely just about the person whose birthday it actually is. They are mandatory group events, controlled almost entirely by my parents, and held at their house. It's always the same exhausting routine. Same house, same dry catered food, same rigid seating arrangements. My older brother, Derek, and his wife usually arrive an hour late, incredibly loud, dragging along their 9-year-old son, Mason. Derek has always had this suffocating way of filling a room, not with warmth or charisma, but with absolute certainty. He has the unshakable certainty that he is always right, that his opinion is the only reasonable one, and that if there is ever any tension or conflict, someone else is entirely to blame. Growing up, Derek was the undisputed golden child. He got better grades, because my parents paid for his expensive private tutors, played better sports, because they bought him the best gear. I've got a better job, through my dad's golfing buddy, and lived in a better house, which my parents helped him with a down payment for. I was always the steady one. The dependable, flexible, boring one who was expected to adapt, compromise, and sacrifice. The very first red flag that Leo's 8th birthday was going to be another painful reminder of this dynamic came when my mom called me 4 days before the party. She asked, in this overly casual, forced tone, whether I could keep my gifts for Leo modest this year. She claimed that Derek's son, Mason, had been feeling a little sensitive lately about comparisons and was struggling with jealousy. I remember freezing in my kitchen, holding the phone away from my ear, and just staring blankly at the refrigerator. I finally said, Mom, it is Leo's birthday. He is turning 8. I'm not punishing him to manage Mason's feelings. She let out this long, theatrical sigh, the exact sigh she uses whenever she thinks I am being deliberately difficult. I know, Ethan, but you know how Derek's family is right now. Things are tight for them. Let's just keep things balanced and fair so there are no tantrums. I gritted my teeth and told her fine, mostly because I was exhausted from a 60-hour work week and simply didn't have the emotional bandwidth to have a screaming match with her right then. I severely regret not pushing back harder. The morning of the party, Leo was bouncing around our living room like he was plugged directly into a high-voltage electrical socket. I told him I had a massive surprise for him later, and he spent the entire car ride to my parents' house guessing wildly. Was it a giant Lego set? A new video game console? A trip to the water park? I let his imagination run wild because I wanted the final reveal to be absolutely perfect. When I loaded the heavy dirt bike into the back of my SUV, I covered it completely with a thick moving blanket and made him promise not to peek. He dramatically covered his eyes with both hands and swore he wouldn't look. When we pulled into my parents' driveway, the house was already chaotic. Derek's massive, obnoxiously lifted truck was parked diagonally across the driveway, taking up 2 spaces, with the radio blasting loud country music into the quiet residential neighborhood. Derek was standing on the porch. He waved at me with his condescending half smile he always uses, looking at me like I'm a subordinate employee he doesn't particularly respect. Hey man, he yelled over the music. You're late. We were actually 10 minutes early. The first hour of the party was relatively normal. There was cake on the kitchen island, some cheap balloons taped crookedly to the walls, and my dad was stationed near the backyard grill like a military sentry. Leo politely opened a few small, generic gifts from my parents and some extended relatives, some socks, a science book, a cheap board game. He smiled genuinely and said thank you to every single person, but I could tell he kept glancing out the window toward my SUV, practically vibrating with anticipation for the big surprise I had promised. When I finally walked out to the driveway, pulled the heavy dirt bike out of the trunk, and wheeled it around to the backyard patio, my heart was hammering with excitement. I felt that overwhelming, bursting swell of pride in my chest that every parent chases. I wheeled it slowly onto the grass and tapped the little silver bell on the handlebars. Leo completely froze. His jaw practically unhinged. He didn't scream. He didn't jump up and down. He just stared at the gleaming blue metal, his eyes wide as saucers, like he was terrified it was a mirage that would vanish if he blinked. Dad, he whispered, his voice trembling. Is that really mine? I nodded, beaming. He sprinted across the yard and hugged my waist so hard he nearly knocked the wind out of me. It was a perfect, beautiful moment. That should have been the end of the story. A happy kid, an awesome dirt bike, and a core memory locked in forever. Instead, I looked up and noticed Derek watching us from the corner of the patio, his jaw clenched tight and his eyes narrowed. His son, Mason, had gone completely silent too, staring at the dirt bike with a dark, petulant expression I recognized instantly. It was the exact look that screamed, someone else has something shiny that I want, and my dad is going to fix it for me. Derek slowly walked over, holding his beer, crouched down next to the dirt bike, and started inspecting it like a mechanic looking for flaws in a used car. Wow, he said, his voice carrying loudly over the chatter of the party. That is a pretty serious, expensive machine. He stood up and glared directly at me. Didn't Mom talk to you about keeping things simple this year, Ethan? I felt my blood pressure spike, but I kept my voice perfectly even for Leo's sake. It is my son's birthday, Derek. I bought him a gift with my own money. Derek scoffed and rolled his eyes. Yeah, but you know how kids are at this age. They compare everything. Feelings get hurt when someone shows off. He reached down and aggressively ruffled Mason's hair. Right, buddy? It's not really fair, is it? Mason crossed his arms and glared at Leo. My mom immediately rushed over, nervously wiping her hands on an apron, and loudly announced that it was time to cut the birthday cake, desperately trying to defuse the tension. The uncomfortable moment passed, or so I foolishly believed. I spent the next 45 minutes proudly watching Leo ride slow, cautious circles around the empty half of the driveway, laughing hysterically every time he revved the little electric motor. I finally relaxed. I figured Derek had complained, gotten it out of his system, and would now drop it. I walked inside the house for less than 3 minutes to grab a stack of paper plates and some napkins. As I was walking back toward the front door, I heard a heavy vehicle tailgate slam shut. I looked through the living room window just in time to see Derek violently shoving my son's brand new electric dirt bike into the bed of his lifted truck. For a fraction of a second, my brain literally short-circuited. I couldn't comprehend what I was looking at. Then the adrenaline hit. I dropped the paper plates, threw open the front door, and sprinted down the driveway, my heart hammering against my ribs. What the hell do you think you are doing? I shouted. Derek didn't even flinch. He didn't look guilty or surprised. He just calmly secured the tailgate, dusted off his hands, and turned to face me with a sickeningly smug smirk. Relax, Ethan. I'm taking it back to my place for a while. Mason is clearly very upset, and it's incredibly selfish of you to just rub this expensive toy in his face. You can easily just buy another one for Leo later. That was the exact moment something deep inside my soul fundamentally fractured. It didn't explode into a fiery rage. It didn't snap loudly. It just shifted, violently and permanently, like a tectonic plate giving way under decades of crushing pressure. I looked past Derek's smug face and saw my 8-year-old son standing on the porch. Leo looked utterly devastated, his little hands clenched into tight fists at his sides, his lower lip trembling violently as he tried desperately not to cry in front of everyone. I opened my mouth to scream at Derek, to physically drag him away from the truck, to demand he put my property back immediately. But before I could take a step, my parents rushed out the front door. My mom grabbed my arm, her grip surprisingly tight, pulling me back. Ethan, please, she hissed frantically, keeping her voice low so the neighbors wouldn't hear. Let's not make a massive scene out here. The kids can sense the tension. Just let him take it for now. I whipped my head around to stare at her, utterly bewildered. He is literally stealing my son's birthday gift. He just stole it right out of the driveway. My voice sounded hollow, completely detached from reality. My dad stepped up, his face stern and completely devoid of sympathy. He's just borrowing it to keep the peace. Ethan, you heard him. You make good money, you can just go get another one tomorrow. Stop being so dramatic and ruining the party. It's not the end of the world. I stood there, paralyzed by the sheer audacity of the gaslighting. Derek casually hopped into the driver's seat of his truck, started the engine, and slowly drove away with my son's birthday gift sitting in the back. I didn't chase the truck. I didn't call the cops right then. I just stood in the driveway, my arms hanging uselessly at my sides, feeling completely numb. Leo slowly walked down the steps, tugged gently on the sleeve of my shirt, and looked up at me with tears finally spilling over his eyelashes. Dad, he whispered, his voice cracking. Did I do something wrong? Was I not supposed to ride it? That question felt like a physical knife twisting in my stomach. The anger finally erupted in my chest, hot and blinding. I dropped to my knees, pulled him into a fierce hug, and told him, no, Leo, you did absolutely nothing wrong. None of this is your fault. I promise you, I'm going to fix this. The rest of the party was a surreal, sickening blur. We went back inside, and my family completely pretended nothing had happened. They ate cake, laughed, and drank beer. My dad made a terrible joke about the weather. No one mentioned the dirt bike. No one mentioned Derek's sudden absence. It was a silent, collective agreement that my son's trauma was completely irrelevant compared to keeping Derek happy. I watched Leo push his slice of cake around his plate with a plastic fork, his joy completely extinguished, and I felt a cold, dark resolve settle into my bones. When we finally left, my mom hugged me at the door and whispered, don't hold a grudge about this, Ethan. Family is always more important than material things. I didn't say a single word to her. I just buckled Leo into my car and drove home in total silence. That night, Leo asked if he could sleep in my bed, something he hadn't done since he was a toddler. As he curled up under the blankets, he asked in a tiny, broken voice, Dad, does Mason need the bike more than me because he's better than me? I felt hot tears sting my own eyes. I stroked his hair and said, no, buddy, Mason isn't better than you. Sometimes, adults make incredibly selfish, terrible choices, and they don't care who they hurt. But you are the best boy in the world, and I love you. He fell asleep gripping my shirt tightly in his fists. I stayed awake staring at the ceiling until the sun came up, replaying the scene over and over. I was done. I was so completely, permanently done. Update 1. The next morning, my phone started exploding with notifications before I even poured my coffee. There was a text from my mom, hope you've cooled down, honey. Let's all just move on. A voicemail from my dad telling me to be the bigger man, and a text from Derek, no hard feelings bro. Kids are kids, you know how it is. Mason loves the bike. I didn't reply to any of them. Instead, I sent one single message to a family group chat that included my parents and Derek. I want the dirt bike returned to my house by 5 p.m. today. Derek replied instantly, lol, relax. Let's talk later. You're being hysterical. 5 o'clock came and went. No bike. When I called Derek, it went straight to voicemail. When I called my parents, my mom answered and instantly went into full mediator mode. She told me Mason had already bonded with the bike, and taking it away from him now would cause the poor boy unnecessary trauma. She literally asked me why I was so obsessed with a piece of metal. Because it wasn't yours to give away, Mom, I said, my voice dangerously calm. And it wasn't Derek's to steal. She sighed loudly. You are making this so much harder than it needs to be, Ethan. I hung up the phone. Over the next few days, the psychological warfare escalated. Derek posted a photo on Facebook of Mason riding Leo's blue dirt bike, captioned, teaching my boy that sharing is caring. Best weekend ever. My mom loved the photo. My dad commented with 3 fire emojis. It was a coordinated campaign to show me that I was entirely powerless. But what they didn't know was that I had stopped being sad, and I had started getting busy. The very first thing I did was drive to a premium motorsports dealership 2 towns over. I didn't buy another $600 Razor. I bought a $1,200, top-of-the-line, gas-powered Yamaha PW50 mini motorcycle. It was bright red, incredibly loud, and an absolute beast of a machine. I bought a top-tier helmet, riding boots, and chest protectors. I brought it home, parked it right in the middle of the living room, and waited for Leo to get off the school bus. When he walked inside and saw it, he dropped his backpack. He looked at the bike, then looked at me, terrified. "Dad, is someone going to take this one away too?" I knelt down, looked him dead in the eyes, and said, "Nobody is ever taking anything from you ever again. I swear it on my life." The smile that broke across his face was like watching the sun come out after a hurricane. We spent the entire weekend at a local dirt track. He laughed so hard he got the hiccups. That sound was my fuel for what came next. While Leo was asleep, I started digging. For years, I had been the reliable one. I was the one who fixed my parents' computers, helped them with their taxes, and organized their paperwork. I still had the passwords to their main desktop computer from the last time I installed an antivirus software for them. I logged into their shared cloud drive, entirely legally, because they had explicitly given me administrative access years ago to manage their digital backups. I wasn't looking for anything specific, just trying to see if they were helping Derek pay for the bike. What I found was a massive, rotting mountain of financial fraud and emotional betrayal. First, I found a hidden iMessage group chat synced to their cloud, titled Family Updates, a chat that included my parents, Derek, and Derek's wife. I wasn't in it. I scrolled back through months of messages. They talked about me constantly. They mocked my job. They called me boring, too sensitive, and a convenient ATM. But the message that made my blood run ice cold was sent by my mom, 2 days before Leo's birthday party. "Derek, I know Mason wants the dirt bike Ethan is buying. Just let Ethan bring it to the party, and you can take it home later. Ethan won't fight back. He never does. It's easier to just let you have it than deal with Mason crying. We'll handle Ethan's emotions." They had planned the theft. It wasn't a spur-of-the-moment reaction. It was a premeditated robbery facilitated by my own parents. But the messages weren't even the worst part. As I dug deeper into their saved financial PDFs, I found a folder labeled Derek House. I opened it and discovered a series of bank statements. 5 years ago, when I was 29, I had temporarily co-signed on a small personal loan to help my parents fix their roof. I paid my portion, the roof was fixed, and I forgot about it. But they never closed the joint line of credit. According to the documents on the screen, my parents had secretly kept that line of credit open, forged my digital signature on an extension document, and maxed it out to the tune of $45,000. Where did the money go? Direct wire transfers to Derek's bank account to pay for his massive home renovations, his wife's luxury SUV lease, and his recent business investments that went nowhere. They had stolen my credit capacity, risked my entire financial future, and burdened my name with $45,000 of debt to fund my golden child brother's lavish lifestyle. And now, the cherry on top, the most recent bank notice showed that they were 3 months behind on the payments. The bank was threatening to send the account to collections, which would utterly destroy my pristine credit score. I sat in the dark glow of my computer monitor at 3 a.m., vibrating with a level of rage I didn't know a human body could contain. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just started printing. I printed every single text message, every single bank statement, every single wire transfer receipt. I compiled a massive, irrefutable binder of their crimes. The next morning, I took the day off work. I went straight to the bank. Because my name was technically on the account as the primary guarantor, I had full legal authority over it. I sat down with the branch manager, presented my ID, and explained that I believed the recent extensions and withdrawals were fraudulent and unauthorized by me. I initiated a formal fraud investigation, immediately froze the entire line of credit, and revoked my parents' access to the funds. The manager informed me that doing this would trigger an immediate default status on the $45,000, meaning the bank would aggressively pursue my parents for the full balance immediately, and they would likely put a lien on my parents' house. I smiled and said, "Please proceed as quickly as possible." Then, I drove to the local police precinct. I walked up to the desk sergeant and calmly filed a formal report for grand theft. I gave them the make, model, serial number, and receipt for the $600 electric dirt bike. I named Derek as the thief. I provided his home address, his license plate number, and screenshots of his Facebook post bragging about having the stolen property. I explicitly stated I wanted to press full criminal charges. The officer took my statement, handed me a copy of the official police report, and told me a detective would be reaching out to Derek shortly. I went home, put the binder and the police report into a neat manila envelope, and waited. 2 days later, the trap presented itself perfectly. My mom called me, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. "Ethan, we are hosting a big family dinner this Sunday. A reset gathering. Derek wants to clear the air and apologize for the misunderstanding with the toy. We want to bring the family back together. Please bring Leo." I knew exactly what this was. They were going to corner me in front of the extended family, force a fake apology from Derek, and pressure me into letting it go so they could maintain their perfect family image. "I'll be there," I said smoothly, "but Leo is staying with a babysitter. This is an adult conversation." "Oh, wonderful," she chirped, completely oblivious to the hurricane heading directly for her house. "See you Sunday." Update 2. When I pulled up to my parents' house on Sunday evening, the driveway was packed. Aunts, uncles, cousins, they had invited everyone to witness my submission. I walked through the front door carrying nothing but my keys and the thick manila envelope tucked under my arm. The living room was buzzing with conversation. Derek was lounging in my dad's favorite recliner, holding a beer, looking like the king of the castle. His wife was sitting on the sofa, scrolling on her phone. My parents were bustling around the kitchen. When they saw me, my dad aggressively clapped his hands together. "Ethan, good to see you, son. Let's get this silly little disagreement behind us, right?" I walked directly to the center of the living room and stood in front of the coffee table. The room slowly went quiet as people noticed I wasn't smiling. My mom wiped her hands on a towel and forced a laugh. "Well, Derek has something he wants to say to you, Ethan." "Go ahead, Derek." Derek sighed dramatically, rolled his eyes at his wife, and stood up. He didn't even look me in the eye. "Look, Ethan, I'm sorry you got your feelings hurt over the toy. Mason just really liked it, and I figured since you're doing fine, you wouldn't mind helping out your nephew, but I apologize if you felt slighted. We cool?" He held out his hand for a bro shake, entirely confident that I would take it. I looked at his hand. Then I looked at my parents. Then I looked at the extended family watching us. "We are not cool," I said. My voice was quiet, but it cut through the room like a razor blade. Derek dropped his hand, his smug smile faltering. "Oh, come on, Ethan," my dad barked, stepping forward. He apologized. "Stop being so stubborn. It's just a damn kid's bike. You're tearing this family apart over a piece of plastic." It's actually not about the bike anymore, Dad, I said, unfastening the clasp on the manila envelope. It's about the $45,000 you and Mom stole from me to pay for Derek's house. The silence that fell over the room was absolute. It was so quiet you could hear the hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen. My mom's face instantly drained of all color, turning a sickly, ashen gray. Derek froze, his eyes darting nervously toward my parents. What? What are you talking about? My uncle muttered from the back of the room. I pulled out the first stack of papers and dropped them onto the coffee table. 5 years ago, I co-signed a loan for a roof repair. You kept the account open, forged my signature to extend the credit line, and maxed it out to $45,000. I have the bank statements right here. Every single penny was wire transferred directly to Derek's checking account. I looked directly at Derek, who was suddenly sweating profusely. How's the new kitchen remodel, Derek? Enjoying the granite countertops I apparently paid for? Ethan, stop right now. My mom shrieked, her voice cracking in pure panic. This is a private family financial matter. You are taking things completely out of context. The context, I continued, raising my voice just enough to overpower hers, is that you are 3 months behind on the payments, and you were about to tank my credit score. So, on Thursday, I went to the bank. I reported the forged signatures as fraud. I permanently froze the account. The bank manager informed me that the loan is now in immediate default. They will be demanding the full $45,000 balance from you this week. If you can't pay it, they will put a lien on this house. My dad stumbled backward and literally collapsed onto the sofa, clutching his chest. Derek turned entirely pale. You froze the money? Derek stammered. Ethan, my mortgage payment comes out of that account. My truck payment is tied to that. That sounds like a massive personal problem, Derek, I said coldly. You vindictive little piece of shit. Derek roared, taking a threatening step toward me with his fist balled. I'll kill you. You're ruining my life over a stupid toy. Actually, I said, pulling the final piece of paper from the envelope and holding it up, I'm ruining your life because you're a thief. And speaking of the toy, I tossed the official police report onto the table, right on top of the bank statements. The bright blue police precinct logo was impossible to miss. What is that? My aunt gasped. That is a formal police report for grand theft, I said, staring dead into Derek's terrified eyes. I filed it 3 days ago. I gave the detective your name, your address, and the photographic evidence of you possessing stolen property valued over $500. The detective told me he will be visiting your house tomorrow morning to execute a search warrant and potentially arrest you. Derek's wife let out a loud, horrified sob and covered her face with her hands. Derek staggered back like I had physically punched him in the jaw. You called the cops on your own brother? Over a toy? You stole from my son, I said, my voice dropping to a deadly, icy whisper. You looked my crying 8-year-old in the eyes, stole his birthday present, and drove away laughing. And Mom and Dad helped you plan it. I pulled out the printed transcript of their group chat and threw it onto the table. I read the family updates chat. I know you planned to steal it beforehand. I know you think I'm just a convenient ATM who will never fight back. Well, the ATM is permanently closed. I looked around the room at the stunned, horrified faces of my extended relatives. My aunts and uncles were staring at my parents in absolute disgust. You have 24 hours to return the dirt bike to my driveway in pristine condition, I told Derek. If it is there, I will call the detective and tell him the property was returned, though they may still pursue the charges. If it is not there, I will let them drag you out of your house in handcuffs in front of Mason. And as for the $45,000 bank fraud? I am cooperating fully with the bank's investigation. Good luck. I didn't wait for a response. I turned around and walked out the front door. My phone started vibrating frantically before I even started my car. My mom called 12 times in a row. Derek texted me a massive wall of text begging, pleading, and threatening to sue me. I blocked every single one of their numbers, put my car in drive, and went home to my son. The fallout was spectacular and absolute. Less than 12 hours later, at 6 a.m. on Monday, I heard a loud screech of tires in my driveway. I looked out the window and saw Derek frantically untying the blue dirt bike from the bed of his truck. He practically threw it onto the grass, jumped back into his truck, and sped off like the devil himself was chasing him. The bike was perfectly fine. I wheeled it into the garage and smiled. As for the rest of it, the explosion in my extended family was catastrophic. My aunts and uncles completely cut off my parents. It turns out, Derek had been borrowing money from multiple relatives for years, and my public execution of his finances empowered everyone else to demand their money back. The bank did exactly what they promised. Because my parents couldn't instantly produce $45,000, the bank initiated proceedings to place a lien on their home. Derek, completely cut off from my parents' stolen funds, couldn't make his own inflated mortgage payments. Last I heard through a cousin, Derek's luxury truck was repossessed in the middle of the night, and he and his wife are currently desperately trying to short sell their house to avoid total bankruptcy. My parents tried to show up at my house once, sobbing, begging to see Leo, claiming I was destroying the family over a misunderstanding. I didn't even open the door. I spoke to them through the Ring doorbell camera and told them if they ever stepped foot on my property again, I would have them arrested for trespassing. They haven't been back since. It has been 2 months. My house is quiet, peaceful, and completely free of their toxic, suffocating weight. I got a promotion at work, largely because I finally stopped spending all my mental energy managing my family's manufactured crises. Yesterday evening, the weather was perfect. I sat on my front porch with a cold beer and watched Leo absolutely tear up the empty cul-de-sac on his massive, roaring red Yamaha motorcycle. He was wearing his helmet, completely covered in mud, laughing so hard the sound echoed off the houses. He pulled up to the driveway, cut the engine, and lifted his visor, beaming at me. Dad, he yelled, his eyes sparkling. Did you see how fast I went? Nobody can catch me. I raised my bottle to him, feeling a deep, profound peace settle over my entire life. Nobody is ever going to catch you. But